Look at this. Another rainy, windy, nasty fall day out here. But that's fall, right? So we're gonna deal with it. So we're out here in the Hayward area. Earlier today, it was actually tolerable outside. Filmed a shallow water jig and minnow video targeting weed lines, stuff like that. Move lakes to a lake where they kind of set up a little bit deeper, and we're gonna break down some deep fall rock with live bait, kind of showcasing some heavier pitch cast into some deeper structure here. So I think we're gonna catch some big fish because it's kind of been a big fish thing the past week out here. It's nasty out, so we might do some tips on kind of boat control and stuff like that. And then of course the always technical information and presentation segment. So stay tuned, we're gonna catch some big fish, hopefully, and walk through deep jig and minnow. We are to the spot. So the biggest thing is location, location, location. I said it before. Best guys catch more walleyes because they're fishing around more walleyes. But you know, we just did a big video probably a week ago on kind of fall walleye locations, and I'll link that down below because it's the exact pattern we're fishing right now. Now, our water temp is 56 today. It's dropped down almost 10 degrees in the last week, and normally when I see temps start getting below 60, I start implementing a lot more live bait, like we did this morning in the shallow water, like we're doing now. But you know, I'm looking for these fish, generally relatively tight knit. What I don't want to see is like one fish here, one fish here, one fish here, because I want to find an area where I can make the same cast like 10, 15, 20, 30 times in the same area, because I gotta fish a little bit slower with that jig and a minnow. I want to find those fish stacked up. So a lot of times this is what we're looking for right here. Something that looks like this. You can see we got a tight knit pot of walleyes. You know, something like this over here, where you can see kind of walleyes relating to this little rock shelf. These are the kind of spots we're looking for. So the next thing I'm gonna do is basically drive around, find that spot, waypoint it, get just upwind, because I'm definitely not gonna cast anywhere side to side today except straight back, and start working that jig. Fish on. Now I'm not sure why I thought it was gonna be nice out today. Well, this got the trolling motor cord squeaking. This feels like a good one. Well, there's a bruiser of a Hayward fall walleye. Raining sideways, crazy wind, catching big fish. We gotta fix this trolling motor cord though. That is what you come out here for in the fall. Hog, fat, fall walleyes. Absolutely brutal conditions out, and there's the reward right there. Awesome fish. All right, so the rod and reel, I always get a ton of questions on that, even though I post it in pretty much every video. So the reel, Piscifun Carbon X 2000, it's linked below. Phenomenal spinning reel for 70 bucks. Been using these for a couple of years now. They seem pretty much indestructible, good drag, smooth reel, super light, awesome reel. So we're spooling up with 10 pound, 15 pound braid, something like that. Those two line lengths are pretty much interchangeable. And then because I'm fishing clear water, I always tie in a longer lead. Most of the time I go like 4 or 5 feet of 10 or 12 pound fluorocarbon, just to keep that, you know, brighter braid away from the bait basically. Jig wise, you know, when we're fishing this kind of basically 25 to 32 foot stuff, I'm pretty much always going 3/8 or heavier most of the time. Now we'll get into a little bit why you would go heavier here in a few fish catches, but you got to be able to get down there, especially in a wind like this. 1/4 ounce is just not going to cut it. It's going to be getting whisked around and blown around. So that's pretty much a setup there. As far as a rod goes, St. Croix Mojo Bass 610 medium light extra fast. That is my favorite live bait rod that I fish. I use it in the spring for jigging the minnow. And one of the reasons you want a medium light rod for doing this is because that tip can load a lot more. So a lot of times, especially in wind like this, when I'm jig fishing, some of the fish will bite that I'm not gonna feel. You know, we're always feeling for that jig bite. You pop the jig up, the jig's falling back down, and you feel the line go boom, and that's kind of your classic jig bite. Well, you don't feel that a whole lot fishing a lot of times this deep, especially in this kind of wind. If they pick that bait up off the bottom and I go to jig again, I want that tip to load a little bit before the fish can tell that I'm on there. You know, if I'm using too stiff of a rod and all of a sudden I pick that jig up and the fish is on there, that fish is gonna feel a lot of tension. A lot of times they're gonna let go. So, you know, a lot of times, especially when I'm fishing bigger suckers like this, I like this medium light because it kind of lets me tell me what that fish is doing. I can load that tip up a little bit and feel that fish, you know, either going bump, 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 which normally means they're turning that thing around to start eating it. Or a lot of times I can just feel them kind of like dogging a bone on there, put a little pressure on that tip and you can almost feel them sitting there. So this audio is probably absolutely awful today. We're doing our best to get it done, and that is the setup. He is a nice one though. Oh, come here. Got him. Just another toad for up here. Awesome, awesome fish, awesome bite. I love this deep water jigging bite in the fall. And this recent cold snap we've had, it is definitely on right now. I'll give you a look at this fish. There we go, guys. Another chunker right there. That's what we're out here for. Brutal cold, super big wind, ton of rain. And we're catching fish. You know, they're not affected by these big cold fronts in the fall. It's more day to day how the bite is. But we're on them right now. We're gonna let that one go. We're gonna get into a little bit of some detail you don't hear a lot, is basically how you can fish better in a big wind like this. All right, so how do you control your boat in this kind of a big wind when you're doing a slow presentation like a jig and a minnow in this deeper water? This is not the kind of situation where we make like one cast to an area and then throw a cast over here and then throw a cast over here. Most of the time we're pinpointing these fish on the graph and it'll look something like this right here. And then we're trying to hold still, basically upwind of that. You're not gonna be able to throw sideways to the wind a whole lot and feel what you're doing in a wind like this. So, you know, first thing, spot lock. Spot lock's a huge advantage. When spot lock came out, it kind of changed the game for walleye guys. Now it's changed the game for bass guys. And that is basically a feature on most Minn Kota motors. If you're buying a new trolling motor, make sure you're getting spot lock with it. And you just press the anchor button and that trolling motor is going to hold you still. Now the wind's died down a ton from you know, what it was earlier, but to spot lock in that wind, to do it effectively, I use my kicker. And basically what I'll do is I'll just trim that down, I'll fire it up, and I'll just kick it in gear. And that gives me some thrust from basically the back of the boat. And all that trolling motor does is basically kind of keep me from turning sideways. And most time you kind of know when you have the right amount of throttle, because that trolling motor head, instead of always pointing forward, it's going to kind of be pointing side to side, then it'll go to the other side. It's basically just keeping that bow in line with the back of the boat. Now, if you're a tiller guy, or I'm not sure, I've never owned a wheel boat, but if you are a wheel boat, most motors come with idle adjustment now. So I'm in gear right now, and this is going to be, I'm at 70 RPMs. But I can dial this down by holding my RPM adjuster, and I just went down another interval of 10. So if you don't have a kicker and you still want to kind of use, you can use your big motor a lot of times if you can dial it down far enough. So a lot of times I'll drop that trolling motor in a big wind, I'll turn my big motor on, I'll kick it in gear, and then I'll just go down a set of RPMs until that head's kind of swinging like that. And a lot of times that keeps me perfectly in line. Now, tackle wise, how you can fish in a big wind like this is, let's say you were using all 3/8 ounce, right? And it's just gonna be really tough to feel on kind of, you know, your standard weight jig out in this kind of stuff. So a lot of times I'll just jump up to a 1/2 or a 3/4, and then something I can fish on a lot tighter line. I love that kind of hang time you get in the fall by fishing a lighter jig, but a lot of times you just gotta fish, you know, whatever you gotta fish to get the job done. And how you can kind of get away from, or how you can kind of get that hang time back when you're fishing a heavier jig. Once you get it out there, you know, when you're on bottom, a lot of times that lighter jig, I'll kind of do it like that and just ease my rod down. Just don't drop your rod. and that angle's so steep because you're fishing in deeper water, that jig's gonna hop up like it normally would, and it's gonna fall real slow even though you're using a heavier jig. So that's just a couple of ways. The camera's getting soaked right now. It's just a couple of ways you can kind of combat this heavy wind, which seems to just plague us every single fall, and definitely the last week. So heavier jigs, practice good boat control, and you guys are gonna be able to be effective in this deep water in the wind. Fish on. Nowhere near as big as the first two, but it is definitely a walleye. I could barely feel that bite out there. There we go. Good mix of size. A couple of dandies to start. Now just a regular nice eater. We'll let him go and look for another big one. And fish on. Feels like decent head shakes, not a giant, but a nice one. Go ahead and flip them on in. There we go. Live bait fishing in the fall. For some reason this bite always has kind of a sweet spot in my heart. I don't know if it's just because it's something different. We don't get to do it all year, but a ton of fun. Obviously extremely effective. If you guys, like I said, if you guys want to see that shallow water live bait video I did earlier today, the link will be down in the description. You know, now obviously we're fishing these deep rock around a different lake, and a lot of lakes will have both these bites going on. One might just have one or the other or something like that, but super effective way to fish all fall. And the colder it gets, it's just going to really get more effective, and more of these fish are going to kind of gravitate towards these. So I kind of wanted to get a ton of fall videos out, how-tos, where to find fish, stuff like that, before the deep fall really set in. We're kind of entering it here in the Northwoods, but you know, it's early October now, and we got probably a month and a half for sure left to fish up here. But yeah, if you guys have not done the jig sucker minnow bite, it's a ton of fun, super effective, probably the simplest, easiest way to catch walleyes all fall. So thank you guys for watching. If you want to see any other video that you know, we've done this fall, they'll all be on the channel. Anything from snap jig and hyper rattles to Castmaster spoons, and then a whole bunch of location videos that are on the channel. So thanks for watching. If you guys have not already, please subscribe, and we'll see you next time.